So this is the ultimate showdown, the brand new GoPro HERO 6 versus the Yi 4K Plus. I'm Ben from AuthenTech, let's jump right in. So the Yi 4K Plus used to be my favorite action camera, hands down. It shoots 4K, 60 FPS, great stabilization, and the price is incredible, only $300 brand new on Amazon. But today, has Yi officially been dethroned? Well, keep watching to find out. So let's start with some bright outdoor sunny blue skies. Let's compare side-by-side 4K video 60 FPS. Some things you'll notice right off the bat in most of these shots, the new GoPro 6 has really punched up the contrast and saturation. Those blue skies, green grass, and trees really pop off the screen, while the Yi maintains a bit more of a flat shooting color profile. This one can be debated for days which one is better, and honestly it comes down to personal preference. Do you want an image straight out of the camera ready to share, or do you enjoy the color grading process? For me personally, I used to lean towards the flat profile, but since becoming a full-time YouTuber, I honestly don't even have the time to tweak color and white balance anymore in my videos, and I kinda like that extra saturation, sharp contrast punch from the GoPro. No color editing needed. Okay, so enough with the saturation debate, let's move on to other important features. What do you guys think about the 4K res and the sharpness, image clarity, and quality? For me, in certain shots, the Yi actually looked quite a bit better, and that kind of makes sense since it's recording a much higher bitrate of data, 135 megabits per second to be exact, while the GoPro is stuck around 60 or 78 megabits per second with Pro Tune turned on. Either way, the Yi is recording almost double the bitrate, which definitely counts for something, and you can see it in a lot of these shots. However, in some other footage, the GoPro looked really good considering it had that lower bitrate. Now moving on to another test, taking 4K 60 FPS footage from both cameras and slowing down 50% half speed. Here I noticed that color and saturation punch on the GoPro looks good, but man, the quality and detail on the Yi is doing a fantastic job. It really looks much better in my opinion. Now on to another big test is stabilization. The new GoPro has a much improved 6-axis electronic image stabilization, while the Yi 4K Plus also has EIS only. Neither camera actually features optical image stabilization, unfortunately. Hopefully we'll see this in future models. Now neither camera can maintain 4K 60 with stabilization turned on, so here they're both recording at 4K 30 with EIS on. Now in this test, I've got to give it to the GoPro 6 as the clear winner. There's lots of little shake and wobbles in the Yi while the GoPro smooths all that out. And I've said this in recent videos, it almost looks like it was captured on a gimbal stabilizer. It looks so smooth. Another feature and difference to notice, I've been really digging the super view ultra wide angle on the GoPro, which thankfully can be turned on while stabilization's turned on as well. And you can notice how much wider perspective we get on the GoPro 6 versus the Yi. It almost makes you feel like you're in the scene, right next to the action. And this is my new favorite mode to shoot in on the new GoPro 6. 4K, 30 FPS, super view, and image stabilization turned on. Just watch me ripping through the grass, it's crazy bumpy and shaky, all the movements are exaggerated through the selfie stick, and all the while that GoPro 6 looks rock solid smooth. I love it. And now onto another stabilization comparison. A simple walking test always helps to show how much a camera can reduce walking, bounce, and shake. It also shows you the massive color, contrast, and dynamic range difference between the two. The Yi looks good, but I've got to give it to the GoPro for just looking better. This is a quick walking test of stabilization. Both turned on, 4K 30 FPS on each. This is an audio test of the new GoPro HERO 6 versus the old Yi 4K Plus. Which one sounds better? How's wind reduction? It's pretty windy out and I'm buzzing along on the trail. Audio test 1, 2, 3, 4. Both shooting at 4K 60 FPS. Now let's compare some slow motion. As I covered in my last GoPro video, make sure you check that one out later, the new HERO 6 can capture some amazing slow motion frame rates. Here's one major area the Yi falls behind. For example, the GoPro 6 can now shoot 2.7K at 120 frames per second. The Yi only maxes out at 60. I went and slowed each camera down the exact same percentage, even though the GoPro is capturing double the amount of frames. So what you'll clearly see is the GoPro shots look buttery smooth, and the Yi is gonna look somewhat glitchy because it only has half the amount of frames. Make sure you're looking at the differences in sharpness, clarity, and quality of that resolution. Take note, of course the GoPro has a much smoother picture, but the sharpness and detail on the Yi actually looks very good. Now let's say we freeze frame and zoom in on the 2.7K shot, we can clearly make out more details on the Yi image. Very interesting. My other favorite shooting mode on the GoPro 6 is 1080p, now shoots 240 frames per second, and the Yi is half that, again, only 120 FPS. I slowed them down to the same speed, 12.5%, and again you'll notice there's double the amount of frames on the GoPro, so it looks buttery smooth and fluid, while the Yi is gonna be a little glitchy. Now of course, the Yi 120 FPS should only be slowed down 25% normally on a 30 FPS timeline, but then the shot would be gone in half the time in this comparison, and I didn't want to give you a blank half screen. I hope that makes sense why I did it. Okay, so again, same as the last test, the GoPro looks super smooth, but dang, that Yi 4K Plus looks way sharper and better clarity, even though they're shooting at the exact same resolution. So it's almost like, what would you rather have, better clarity and quality, or double the frame rate for better, smooth, slow motions? Now we're not done yet. A final comparison I wanted to show you guys with some low light sample shots. Both are shooting at 4K 60 FPS with their own respective low light settings turned on. The reason you shoot at max res and frame rate is due to the nature. That's where most often the higher bit rate will be recorded. Besides, neither camera can record 4K 30 with auto low light turned on. Now in my thoughts, I'd say the GoPro 6 looks to be doing a better job in the low light. Its sharpness and details look better, and even though those blues look a tad too cool and saturated, it looks more like a usable shot. They both have a fair amount of noise, but neither of which is terrible. Now of course, there are a ton of other aspects I just didn't have the time to compare today, like voice controls, their apps, Wi-Fi, and manual exposure settings, and a whole lot more. The biggest comparison to discuss now is pricing. The new GoPro 6 comes in at $500, while the Yi 4K Plus is almost half that price at $300, both on Amazon Prime. We gotta remember, the Yi is about half a year old now, so I think the GoPro should beat the Yi in most categories. The question though is the higher price worth it? I personally think if you're using an action camera for weekend adventures or capturing just your family and memories, and if you go underwater once in a while, then using a waterproof case isn't gonna be a big deal, then the Yi 4K Plus just kind of makes sense. It's still a great action camera at a more affordable price point. Now, if you want or need the best of the best and that extra $200 doesn't break the bank, then the new GoPro 6 is the way to go. The built-in waterproof housing is kind of awesome and turns into a major deal if you're venturing underwater often. I'm honestly really impressed with the GoPro's improved performance overall. I'm not happy though that it costs $100 more than the GoPro 5 did. Now, if you already have the Hero 5 and you want to see if it's worth the upgrade, I'll give you that link to check out my video down below. Also, make sure you stay tuned for my in-depth Hero 6 and Fusion 360 review coming soon. Also, consider following me on Instagram for behind the scenes shots, and thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, let's live AuthenTech.